Huge storyline plans for Bray Wyatt in WWE may have been revealed. Plus, SmackDown tonight, Bray Wyatt will be in attendance. We've got an update on the creative plans for Wyatt on the show. Sasha Banks, what's going on with her WWE future? Is she actually under contract with WWE and negotiating for a new contract with the company? Mystery storylines have been all the rage in WWE recently, and they're set to continue. We've got a huge return tonight on SmackDown. Details behind an ex-WWE star set to return to SmackDown on tonight's broadcast. Chelsea Green is another name that's been linked to a return. We've got an update on her possible WWE return. Money in the Bank, could it be set to return to WrestleMania? Sheamus was written off of television last week. We've got an update on the possible reason why. And the holiday TV tapings, WWE's plans for that. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of WWE. It's Friday, which means another edition of SmackDown live on Fox. And the biggest and best thing about the blue brand at the moment, of course, is Bray Wyatt since making his return at Extreme Rules earlier this month. And we've got an update on the longer term plans for Bray Wyatt, a possible faction, Wyatt 6, and the shorter term plans for Bray Wyatt, especially when it comes to SmackDown tonight. So let's get straight into Bray Wyatt, one of our favorite things, certainly mine, to talk about here on the channel. And huge potential plans for Bray Wyatt following his WWE return may have potentially been revealed since Wyatt's appearance in the closing moments of the October 8th Extreme Rules Premium Live event. The popular star has been fueled with speculation surrounding his next move with intriguing promos. Per Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it is thought within WWE that a Wyatt versus Roman Reigns feud could be huge with the star's current standings. Meltzer noted, quote, "While it could be best to keep them apart for a while, the idea is Reigns versus Wyatt could be the biggest program in a long time since Wyatt is so hot right now." Of course, Roman Reigns currently holds the undisputed WWE Universal Championship and has been the top guy on SmackDown since his return in August of 2020. Wyatt, on the other hand, is reportedly internally listed as the #1 babyface on the SmackDown brand and is the top seller of merchandise ahead of Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. Of course, many criticize the Fiend's 2019 feud with Seth Rollins for putting such an intriguing character in the title picture, so WWE would need to provide fans with a satisfying reason for Wyatt to challenge for the championship whenever he next does. Of course, Roman Reigns is set to defend his Universal Championship next against Logan Paul at Crown Jewel on November 5th, and it certainly is very interesting now. I'm going to get to my thoughts on that in a second, but when it comes to creative for Bray Wyatt on SmackDown tonight, of course, SmackDown is holding a double taping, and Bray Wyatt, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, is set to be integrated into both broadcasts. Now, Fightful are reporting that several pieces of Bray Wyatt's past were to be included in some of his segments, at least of the creative, certainly the creative plan of Thursday. That is going to be what is happening on Fox tonight when it comes to SmackDown. Specifically, Fightful have heard that the rocking chair that he used in his initial WWE run was to be brought in. In addition, the Fiend mask is set to be used, but plans call for it to be ripped up by someone, either Bray or another talent, which could be an indicator of really what's to happen with the Fiend moving forward in WWE. Now, in regards to the rumors that Bray Wyatt was imminently set to feud with Roman Reigns, one source in WWE Creative has pushed back on those reports by Meltzer, claiming that was false. Specifically, they said, "Where would we go from there?" And another noted they learned from the Fiend run. So certainly some interesting points there. First of all, to start off with the Roman Reigns possibility, I agree with what the Sean Ross Sapp report from Fightful Select there said. I can't see that, and this is what is so important when it comes to wrestling news, in my opinion, particularly when it comes to Dave Meltzer. Meltzer often, when he's writing, when he's talking, he will speculate or he'll give his opinion. He's saying, in his mind, the biggest thing WWE could do, possibly in the future, would be Bray Wyatt as a babyface, Roman Reigns as a heel. That's his thoughts. That's his belief. That doesn't mean that imminently we're going to see Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt, or Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt Six is going to feud with the Bloodline on SmackDown. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that he thinks that's the biggest thing WWE could do in the future. And people have to differentiate between fact and between speculation, and that's speculation. Now, eventually in the future, could they go towards Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns? I've pitched that myself. I said that the story's there. Who was the last Universal Champion before Roman Reigns won the championship? He won it from Bray Wyatt. Think of the journey. Think of the journey and the story that they could tell. They could say, Roman Reigns came back to WWE in August of 2020. 7 days later, he defeated Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. He hasn't lost the championship since then. In the meantime, Bray Wyatt gets released. He sits on the shelf for 18 months nearly. He comes back, different character, different persona, comes back as Wyndham and Uncle Howdy and this kind of stuff. And he's the guy. He's the guy to defeat and end Roman Reigns' historic reign as Universal Champion. And the story is that the guy who defeats Roman Reigns is the guy that held the championship before, but the metamorphosis that happened in that space of time, that's a clear story to tell. That's an easy story to tell. It's not one they need to tell immediately. There's lots of different storyline beats they have to follow when it comes to Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns before then. And there are other feuds and other matches for Roman Reigns to have during that period of time. Cody Rhodes, possibly The Rock. Another names like Braun Strowman is clearly being built up for a match against Roman Reigns at some point as well. There's several names there, but Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns doesn't and shouldn't, and I don't think won't happen anytime in the near future. Possibly WrestleMania time, but again, depends on The Rock, depends on Cody Rhodes. There's lots of different factors at play here, but certainly there's a story to be told of the person to end the title reign is the guy that Roman Reigns defeated for the belt in the first place, but he's a completely different person at this point. I think that's really intriguing, and that's, again, a simple, satisfying story to tell. They could even do the match in which Roman Reigns won the championship back at Payback in 2020. They could do Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman. They're all with WWE once again. That wasn't possible just a few months ago, but times have changed. So certainly there's something they could do with that. Again, they have to learn from what happened with The Fiend, and that realistically no one benefited from really working with The Fiend, and it was difficult to come out of that feud and move to something else without completely reinventing your character. And again, they have to be cautious when it comes to that with Bray Wyatt, and I understand that. And realistically, The Fiend character never really should have been a world champion, never really should have been Universal Champion, because again, he has to drop the championship to someone, but he's also at the same time this undefeatable monster. That's how you get into a situation like Goldberg beating him and everyone hates it. The issue there wasn't primarily that he lost, is that he lost to Goldberg in minutes, and you spent months being invested in this character saying that he's undefeatable only for him to be defeated in mere minutes. All of that was a shambles. Now, as far as Bray Wyatt's creative for SmackDown tonight, it's interesting because of course we've seen in recent weeks, and when he made his return at Extreme Rules, there is a big emphasis, a huge emphasis on his past and picking up pieces of his past. Certainly for him to be back in the rocking chair is interesting, and also him ripping off the Fiend mask. If he's wearing it, that would be fascinating, because we've never seen that shot. In the previous run, obviously we knew the Fiend and Bray Wyatt is the same person, they're one in one, but once the Fiend mask was on, they treated it like it was a completely different person. Yes, they said he was the Fiend Bray Wyatt, but we never saw him take that mask off and reveal the person underneath it, reveal the look underneath it. So if they were to do that tonight, that would be really interesting. And as I mentioned previously, my sort of pitch and idea for what the Wyatt 6 faction would be wouldn't be 6 different people. It would be 6 personalities of Bray Wyatt. It'd be 6 faces of fear. You've got, obviously, Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse. You've got Wyndham Rotunda. You've got the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. You've got the Fiend. You've got Uncle Howdy, and you've got Uncle Harper. They could all be 6 different people, or 6 different personalities, but they're all the same person. That hasn't really been done before. A faction of people that's all one person. That's very unique, and that's very up the roots of Bray Wyatt. How they could pull that off, I don't know. And that, to me, sounds like more mysteries being piled up. But it's certainly a possibility. So, of course, don't you worry, guys. Tomorrow, we'll break it all down. We'll get into the Easter eggs, the subtle hints, because I'm sure there will be some more tonight on SmackDown, and we'll break that all down for you. That'll be up tomorrow morning, depending on where you are in the world. Let's talk about Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks, a possible return to WWE, has been spoken about widely. At one point, saying that she had her contract had expired, or she had been released, or what was going on with her. Well, we've got an update. Of course, Sasha Banks and Naomi infamously walked out of the May 16, 2022 episode of Monday Night Raw and neither woman has been seen in WWE since then. While there was no official confirmation that the two women had been released by the company as a result of their actions, it was widely assumed that that was the case, as both Banks and Naomi have been working on several non-WWE projects since May. However, in a surprise update in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, it appears that Sasha Banks, at the very least, is actually still under contract with WWE, and on top of that, negotiations regarding a new deal have indeed taken place. Dave Meltzer wrote, quote, "She is still under contract to WWE, but there is no word on when she'll return, as there were said to be hang-ups in negotiations for a new contract. Naomi has also reportedly been in contract talks with WWE, but there have been no indication that she has signed anything just yet, or that WWE has any concrete plans for bringing her or Sasha Banks back into the fold." Now, Banks recently changed her name on social media to her real name, Mercedes Varnado, something fans took as an indication she had officially moved on from WWE. But if Meltzer's report is accurate, there's every chance Banks will be back in a WWE ring in the future. Banks seemingly teased getting back into a wrestling training program recently on Instagram, and she and Naomi shared a reunion photo with WWE stars The New Day on the purple carpet for the new Disney film Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So this is interesting because it flies in the face of everything we have heard previously. There have been so much, and there has been so much conflicting information when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi, their future with WWE. They've been released, their contracts have expired, they're still under contract, they're negotiating new contracts, they are coming back, they aren't coming back, this, that, and the other. At this point, I don't know. I really don't know. I expect Sasha Banks and Naomi to return to WWE, but the reason I expect them to return is because Triple H is in charge. In that famous now interview of Ariel Helwani, where Helwani asks about all of these WWE, or at the time, former WWE stars, are they going to return? He asks about Braun Strowman. Triple H says, "I love working with him." Braun Strowman's back just a couple of weeks later. Bray Wyatt, oh, he's so creative. I really enjoyed working with him. Bray Wyatt's back. Sasha Banks spoke about sometimes fences need to be mended and relationships need to be solved and resolved. It takes time, it's a process, but I really enjoyed working with her, and she's one of the best female wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers in the world. She will be back. Sasha Banks will return to WWE at some point. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Obviously, she's done the teasers of her possibly working in Japan and all that kind of stuff. If Meltzer is accurate in that she's under contract to WWE, chances are then that can't happen. And it must be said, and again, this is where it's really important when it comes to Meltzer to differentiate fact from speculation, but he's being very matter-of-fact with what he's saying there. He's saying she's still under contract. I mean, you can't say it any clearer than she is still under contract to WWE, but there's no word on when she'll return. If she's still under contract, WWE realistically could be at their beck and call and say, right, come back, you're coming back on this day. So I'm not sure how completely accurate that is. Again, I'm not a scoopster, so I can't tell you. But you're getting people saying she'd been released. You're getting other people saying her contract has expired because, again, it was only earlier this year that they said, well, Banks' contract was set to expire this year anyway. And we're heading towards the end of 2022. So who knows? Who knows? The one thing I think is fairly certain is at some point, and I don't know how far in the future, if this is the near future or the long-term future, Sasha Banks and Naomi, they will be back in WWE. I have no doubt in my mind about it. Some people thought it was going to be when there was that Women's Tag Team Championship tournament. Some people thought a bit later. As we head towards the end of the year, it might now be in sort of January of next year, Women's Royal Rumble time. If there's an Evolution pay-per-view, which there isn't going to be this year, I don't know. But one thing we do know, I think, is that Banks and Naomi will be coming back at some point. Mystery storylines, they've been all the rage in WWE recently, and there's been a lot of success of it, of course. And according to a new report, Paul Triple H Levesque is planning more mystery storylines for WWE following the success of the build-up of the Bray Wyatt return with the White Rabbit teasers. As per Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE's Chief Content Officer Triple H had considered incorporating more ominous teasers and angles prior to Wyatt's comeback. Meltzer explained, quotes, Paul Levesque had told people even before Wyatt debuted that the type of teasers that were being done would be used more often as a facet of storyline and mystery. With the success of the Wyatt angle, expect there to be more of it. Wyatt's return at Extreme Rules in October was teased with a series of QR codes on screen during Raw and SmackDown. These clues had led eagle-eyed fans down the rabbit hole, as it were, following red herrings to creepy videos of butchered pigs, interspread with cartoons. There were also HTML codes, obviously QR codes, etc., URL codes. There was all this kind of stuff, and it was a lot of fun to break down. And WWE are reportedly thrilled with how the campaign was received. Viewer enjoyment has seemingly translated well in terms of merchandise, with the latest Bray Wyatt merch proving to be a bestseller for WWE. Plans were recently reported that WWE does intend to create a line of plushes for the Firefly Funhouse characters as well. Following the success, it's probably a no-brainer for WWE to create similar content along in this vein. With the acquisition of comic and horror writer Rob Fee as director of long-term creative, this certainly seems likely. Paul Levesque's apparent idea to do more mystery teases even before Wyatt's return is perhaps another reason behind the hiring of Rob Fee. WWE, of course, has already kicked off another mystery storyline with the Scripts tease that aired this past Tuesday on NXT. And the only thing I would say, because obviously, look, in life and in business and in entertainment and in whatever, you go with what is working. If something is working, you continue pushing it, you continue pursuing it. And again, if something's working, you keep riding it until it stops working, or you keep doing it until it stops working. The only thing they have to be really careful is possibly, in my opinion, the reason the White Rabbit stuff worked so well is, one, it was very in keeping with the Bray Wyatt character. It felt like something that Bray Wyatt would do, and the mysteries and the three little pigs and the White Rabbit in Italy, or the Pink Rabbit in Italy, and the coordinates and all that kind of stuff. That felt very Bray Wyatt, and it worked with his character. If there's a mystery every single week on every single television show, it will get old very, very quickly. So what they have to make sure is that they don't overdo it, they don't overexpose it, it doesn't become oversaturated, because again, eventually people will stop trying to solve mysteries. Eventually, people won't care, because they'll say, oh, I can't be bothered. And the one time that the mystery doesn't pay off, people won't be invested anymore. Fortunately for WWE, with the Bray Wyatt stuff, they nailed it. Not only did they nail the build-up, but the execution. It was a satisfying reveal to what was a very fun mystery to try and solve. But the one time that it isn't, the one time that the reveal is a letdown, people won't be bothered anymore. They won't be invested. And again, it works so well because it was somewhat out of the norm. We don't always have mysteries. People always love a whodunit or a murder mystery or true crime, all that kind of stuff, but also it has to be the right case, it has to be the right person, and it has to hook you. And it can't be every single week, because you'll get tired, you'll get fatigued of it. So I understand wanting to continue and replicate that success, but also at the same time, they do need to be cognizant that it could become very old very quickly. Now, we've got a big return on SmackDown tonight, and obviously at the time of recording, SmackDown hasn't aired, so I'll give you a few seconds if you do want to skip this or exit the video. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We will see tonight, apparently, according to reports, the return of Tenille Dashwood. Former WWE superstar Emma could be headed back to SmackDown tonight. On a recent episode of Fightful Select's Q&A show, Sean Ross Sapp indicated that there could be a returning name as soon as tonight's edition of SmackDown on Fox. PW Insider has now reported that the former Emma, Tenille Dashwood, was backstage at SmackDown today and is expected to answer Ronda Rousey's open challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship on tonight's show. Fightful Select had confirmed that there were plans to bring Tenille back in. Of course, she finished up with Impact Wrestling this year after years with the company, and there was speculation she would return to WWE. Of course, Emma was a real pioneer and driving force of the women's revolution in WWE. William Regal recently praised her, saying that people like to focus on the 4 horsewomen of WWE, and they should. Sasha Banks, Bayley, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, for the work they did in NXT, transitioning that to the main roster, the success of women's wrestling and the growth of women's wrestling in WWE. Absolutely, they were huge parts of that, but the real godmothers of it, as it were, in WWE NXT wasn't Charlotte Flair, wasn't Becky Lynch, wasn't Sasha Banks, wasn't Bayley. The people that really started that off was Paige, Saraya, and Emma. They were the first two really having these great kick-ass matches, proper wrestling matches on the developmental brand at the time. And because of that, because of the spotlight, and because people sort of turning their head and saying, actually, these females are having fantastic matches and the crowd are into them, it opened up the female wrestling scene in NXT. So with Triple H having a huge history of Emma, knowing her work, knowing what she's capable of in the ring, and knowing that he can trust her, it shouldn't come as much surprise that he would bring her back to the company. So it's going to be great to see her back in WWE. As far as what can she do going forward, I mean, she's not as revered, clearly, as your Bankses, as your Charlotte Flairs or Bayley or Becky Lynch or even Saraya or anything like that, but she's certainly a fantastic worker, and there could be a real fun storyline there of saying, well, actually, I helped really kick off this movement in NXT, and suddenly the people that get revered are people like Banks, are people like Bayley, are people like Becky Lynch or Charlotte Flair. Where's the appreciation for me? Now, if she's facing Ronda Rousey in an open challenge, that would suggest that she's going to be a babyface. And I don't know if she's going to be back to Emma doing that dance that she used to do. Remember that? I don't know if we're going to see that in the bubble machine. We might see something a little bit different. I don't know if we're going to see Emmalina again after the mess that was. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Speaking of another return, Chelsea Green reportedly is on her way back to WWE. According to PW Insider, Green has wrapped up her stint with Impact Wrestling and filmed an exit vignette with her VXT tag team partner Deonna Purrazzo at the latest set of Impact Wrestling television tapings. On Thursday night, Green seemingly confirmed her Impact exit by tweeting, quote, "Left you all VXT from the beginning," along with a heart emoji. Again, whilst Chelsea Green's WWE return is still not official, PW Insider noted that the wrestler would not give up regular bookings with Impact Wrestling unless she was WWE bound. Furthermore, there has reportedly been a lot of chatter within certain circles in Impact about Green returning to the WWE. So clearly she has unfinished business to do there, and basically, whilst it's a bit of an assumption, and if you assume, you know what happens, but the assumption is that she wouldn't give up a regular booking in Impact if she didn't have something planned for her, and it would appear that that something is a return to WWE. Money in the Bank. We've got a huge update on Money in the Bank. Of course, recently there had been some discussion about Hell in a Cell. Now, Hell in a Cell, that pay-per-view seemingly has been cancelled by Triple H, with the thought process being that he wants to go away from gimmick pay-per-views and have these matches return when they feel most important, when they feel special. Now, another match that was so successful that it actually ended up having its own pay-per-view was Money in the Bank. Now, a notable stipulation pay-per-view, of course, is the namesake of that match, which was considered one of WWE's big five events towards the end of the Vince McMahon regime. But speaking with Give Me Sport, WrestleVotes noted that they've heard there have been discussions about moving the annual Money in the Bank matches back to WrestleMania. Quote, "Putting Money in the Bank on WrestleMania, one night women's and one night men's is something I've heard. I know since Hunter has taken over, the idea of one night women and one night men is alive." WrestleVotes went on to question whether it would make sense for WWE to follow through with this idea financially, pointing out that WWE originally intended for Money in the Bank 2022 to air from Allegiant Stadium because the match type is a draw in itself. However, it must be said, whilst that was their intention, their plan, they had to move it. It had to air from the MGM Grand Garden Arena because it couldn't sell out Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. So that might be the mindset of moving it back to WrestleMania, saying, well, we understand it can draw a lot of money, but it didn't draw a stadium. It can still probably draw a sellout in an arena. But I don't know. There's something about having Money in the Bank on WrestleMania that I really liked. Of course, again, I'm somewhat of a traditionalist in that I think of those first few Money in the Bank matches at WrestleMania, and I really truly looked forward to them. And I think the location really fit it so well, because whoever wins Money in the Bank, it's basically WWE saying, this person, most likely, but this person we're going to push really hard over the next 12 months. And the perfect event to cap that off, or to start that, is WrestleMania, the grandest stage of them all. So I hope it does return to WrestleMania. I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't, again, because it is a big money maker for WWE, and there will probably be a bit of back and forth with that. Sheamus, of course, was written off of WWE television last week, and we might have a reason behind the injury write-off. Thankfully, it's positive news, as it turns out Sheamus is getting married. In an Instagram post, Sheamus' fiancée, Isabella Ravilla, shared a picture of themselves at their wedding venue. Although the couple is dressed in their wedding finery, they're not married just yet. Rather, Ravilla and Sheamus were picking up their marriage license from the clerk's office in Brooklyn. So with a wedding coming up, you certainly could say it's actually a case of him taking some time off, maybe for his honeymoon, or certainly for his wedding itself. So if that is the case, congratulations to Sheamus. Finally, the holidays are approaching, I know, already, and according to PW Insider, SmackDown will be live every Friday except the December 23 broadcast on Fox. WWE will hold a double SmackDown taping on December 16 at the Allstate Arena in Chicago. The December 16 episode will still air live, while the following Friday will be pre-taped that night. Similarly, WWE pre-taped the 2021 Christmas Eve episode in Chicago. SmackDown will return to the live format for the December 30 episode from Tampa, Florida. NXT, they'll have a busy week starting with the NXT Deadline Premium Live event on Saturday, December 10. After that, NXT will air every week live on the USA Network on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, December 14, they're going to hold a double taping at the Performance Center in Orlando to pre-tape the episode for December 20 and December 27 to finish out the year. The first live episode after that will be the January 6, 2023 episode. For Raw, it's still quite unclear what the plans are for the December 26 episode. WWE is slated to have 2 holiday live events with a non-televised Raw event at the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, while the SmackDown brand will be at Madison Square Garden in New York City. There is a possibility to hold a double Raw taping in Des Moines, Iowa. However, yet that's not been confirmed. Alternatively, PW Insider has noted that WWE could forego the usual Raw format the day after Christmas. So we'll have to wait and see, of course. If we get an update on that, we'll let you know here on the channel. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.